apologize for the poor quality of this and my stuttering and sniffling and all that. I've been fighting a cold at this time, and this is the first video I've ever done, and I'm using a headset. So if you're wondering, so please bear with me. Again, that and I try to be respectful as I explain my points in this video.
Good morning. And lately, a little piece of news. Ever since this Crash Bandicoot game series is being remade in the form of this Crash Has Insane trilogy or whatever. I haven't really played any of them. A lot of news lately has been going around about a new Spyro game. Particularly a remake of the original Spyros from back in the 90s. However, despite much of the preening of a lot of these original Spyro fans, however, I feel I need to step in and fall back and explain why that may not be the case. Is that we will not see a remake of the original Spyro series, but what we will see instead is a remake, or at the very least, a revisit to the Legend of Spyro series. And it's really quite simple. Insomniac was the original creators of the Spyro character. They created their Spyro games for a number of years all throughout the 90s. And as they kept on going, they eventually ran out of ideas, as you could find in quote, it's hard to write new stories for or a character with no hands, as one of them famously stated, much as multiple YouTubers also pointed out. And thus, as they left the Spyro series, and one of a few other developers before Activision finally bought the Spyro IP itself and made their own set of games, and starting with the Legend of Spyro trilogy, which in my opinion are actually good games, despite a lot of people seem to be coming after it for really no reason. And the Skylander games, which at this point we can all agree are really not Spyro games. And it's because Spyro has as much to do with it as those as the Rhinox has to do with the entire franchise, as they aren't just there for really one game, or have such a minor point to it that he's not even really worth mentioning in the Skylander games. Yeah, so basically the Skylander games are not really true Spyro games, and they may have the Spyro characters such as Spyro, Cinder, and Sparks, Eric's, and in the comics, actually Malfoy even makes an appearance, and all this will become relevant and soon. But in the end of the day, they're not really true Spyro games. But why do I go against the flow? Oh, and why is this conversation going on? Well, mainly because of this picture here. There. As you may know, Spyro is appearing in this picture, which got a lot of people going nuts and thinking there's going to be a new Spyro game. And because there are a few other game characters from games that are yet to be released or are about to be released, if not are out already. However, for some reason, a lot of people assume that we're going to see a remake of the original Spyro games, thinking, because of this picture, where you clearly see Spyro in. However, I need to point out a subtle detail that a lot of people seem to overlook. this is not the Skylander Spyro, nor is this the original series Spyro. This is the Legend of Spyro. Spyro. You know, his and after you listen to me, you quickly realize, and it's what I'm about to say makes a lot more sense why they're going back to this Spyro than and any other. And the simple fact is, even though Activision owns the IP now, well, they didn't make the original Spyro games that belongs entirely to Insomniac. If Activision were to actually go out to remake the original Spyro games, they can land themselves into some legal trouble. Trouble that's going to cause delays and countless of dollars. And Activision, and like many companies, is not stupid that way. They prefer to avoid such troubles if necessary. Hey, even though they do own the IP of the Spyro character and characters as a result, because we do see Hunter in this particular game, The Legend of Spyro: Dawn of the Dragon, and they didn't remake the original games, and that's the original games. And anyway, brain fart. And they when they bought the original Spyro, the Spyro character, and that the Spyro franchise was effectively dying. And what they did to it was actually rescued it. A lot of people keep on harping on the Legend of Spyro series for really unjust reasons. And because as it's not like the original, they made too many differences. It's not really a platformer or whatever they may come up with, which frankly all these arguments are really just weak and really not really truly worth paying attention to, because despite all their complaints on that, all the Legend of Spyro games are good games. They're actually quite fun and quite enjoyable. Even though, and as time went on, and they got further and further away from the platforming, and to the point where they just about got rid of it almost altogether, even though they still had it in Dawn of the Dragon. And for those of you who are not aware of what the Legend of Spyro series is about, the few of you that may be out there, the Legend of Spyro series is a series is mainly about two characters, Spyro and Cinder. Yes, she's a big part of it, and she'll become a bit more important to later when I'm about to establish. Yes, in the first game, and Spyro basically he discovers that he's much. It's a classic tale of kind of like something like Lord of the Rings, where he's a reluctant hero who has to go out to save the world, and the main villain in that series was Cinder herself, who he does actually defeat and return back to normal. And actually he rescues. And the second one, and like the first game is called A New Beginning. The second one is known as The Eternal Night, and the third one is Dawn of the Dragon. Well, anyway, the second Legend of Spyro game is, well, what one would call, well, even though it's called The Eternal Night, but it could be more accurately called The Search for Cinder, because in that game, Cinder, the character Cinder, left to seek redemption, mainly because she currently suffered memories of all the things she has done while under the control of the main villain and of the whole franchise. is a Sauron-esque like figure by the name of Malefor, or up to this point known as the Dark Master. Her, and Spyro basically goes out in the world to try to find Cinder, but also learning a few more things along the way and realizing the true scope of the threat that he's really up against. And which he does eventually find, and once again saves Cinder. Well, sort of. Yeah. In the process of trying to save her, he nearly goes dark and becomes the new Dark Master. However, that he basically got snapped out of it at the end there and returned to normal. However, in the process of this, as he and Cinder got trapped underneath this mountain, and all the while, the main villain of the second game, a big chimpanzee gorilla, whose name I can't quite remember. I think it's Gull or something. Planet 8 says ain't. Even though he was killed as a result, his people were able to successfully resurrect Malefor, which leads into the third game, which both characters, Spyro and Cinder, eventually travel and help to end this great war that had Malefor started. In his efforts to take over the world, and eventually Spyro and Cinder were able to defeat him, and that in a very epic way. And the story, and that's kind of like the most basic way you could tell the story, even though as poorly as I told it there. But the story of the Legend of Spyro is of pretty good quality. And it's a generally good story. Alright, and the gameplay themselves, even though unlike the originals, has wandered away from the platforming, but went away from the platforming and focused a little bit more on combat, and focus on how the dragons were able to fight using using the elements of fire, wind, earth, and lightning, and I think one or two others. And I believe, if memory serves me correctly, in the first game, I think Spyro was able to stop time, but for some reason he wasn't able to do that after the second game. And anyway, in the third game, you are able to actually switch between the characters Spyro and Cinder. Or if you're in co-op, one plays as Spyro and one plays as Cinder. Anyway, what I'm trying to establish here that these games are generally good and fun, and yet for some reason, a lot of these people who are fans of the originals, I'm trying to avoid calling them original fanboys, even though that's a pretty apt term, but I don't want to be right demeaning that way. And just going to call them original fans of the original games. Anyway, the fans of the original games, for some reason, keep on harping on the Spyro games, which their reasons really don't really make sense. Like, they keep on claiming that these games are terrible or that, when no, they're not. And one even went so far it didn't age well. Take a look at the originals and compare it to the Legend of Spyro era games in terms of graphics, and you'll find out how full of shit that argument is. Anyway, as I was saying, and apologize for my language, it's the bad rap that these games seem to get really don't make sense, and as a result, we're seeing something, the exact same thing that's going on that happened with Star Wars, where the fans of the originals, it's just won't let up on the newer prequel movies, even though the prequels themselves are actually good movies. Is and as a result, we're getting in these new movies to satisfy their hatred for the prequels. And this is pretty much the exact same situation that's going on right here, right now. It's basically the original games fans are going out of their way to hate on the Legend of Spyro series. It's so whoever owns the IP can make the originals again. However, in this case, things are not going to be such in that way, because even though Activision owns the Spyro IP, they don't own Insomniac, really. Insomniac is its own thing, and even to this day, it may work for other companies, but it's not owned by Insomniac, and as a result, everything Insomniac makes, it's outside of Activision's control. So as a result, the original Spyro games are actually a cannot be touched, or even allow Insomniac to even go near, really, because they don't really own the games. If they're able to, the only way they can pull this up is do the exact same thing that Disney did by buying out Insomniac, like Disney did to LucasArts. And that's pretty much what's been going on here lately, is people who keep on harping on the originals. On the this brain fart again. But you get my point. And one group of fans is hating on another group's fans because the argument is, well, because they didn't grow up with it, we want our old games back. Sad truth is, stuff is not done the same way as it was back then. And not only that, in the case of the Spyro franchise, that really can't really happen, because the simple fact is Insomniac didn't really make the original games. Insomniac did, and they don't own Insomniac. If they were to go out to try to remake the original games, they would be facing an actual case of a lawsuit, despite the fact that Insomniac does own the Spyro character. And that's something they'd be wanting to avoid. And thirdly, a lot of these people who keep on harping on the Legend of Spyro series keep on forgetting the original series was made in the 90s. And the one thing a lot of people don't seem to realize is, as you get older, a little thing called life tends to take over. And as a result, you start playing games less and less, like it happened with my older brother, and it's even happening with me. Like a few years ago, I was playing games all the time. I ain't even enjoying myself, but as a result, but as time went on, and I'm doing more things with my life, I played video games less and less all the time, until the point where I barely play them at all. I occasionally play them every now and again, and try to, but the simple fact that I just don't have time. And heck, I barely even have time to do this video. But regardless, the people who played the original games, more than likely will not be able to come back to play the original games, because quite simply they're moving on with their lives. They're doing things, and so I know I'll bring people back to the original, and new people to the originals. Well, that might be the case, but it also could be a danger too, because think about it for a second. And how often do you see platformers these days succeed? Barely any. In fact, there is almost non-existent. Ah, shit.
also mention, and the fact that, yeah, dude, yeah, yeah, the fact when you look in the game stores these days, is the majority of them, these platformers have have bad rep for being either too easy, too boring, or just way too hard to do a lot of stuff on the things. And quite simply, platformers are not viewed in as much of a positive light, right, as they used to be. And
Yeah, and I do not intend to see anymore. As I digress, as yes, but as they may establish a lot of their arguments that the original game fans may try to make really it makes no business or economic sense. And if they try to go out to make a remake of the original games to please the a original game fans, they're going to see a few losses. Even though some of the Legend of Spyro uh, game fans will actually probably go out to play it, and some of the Skylander fans, all that, and 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 maybe some new people may come in and try to play it, but you do kind of run into the problem of the double-edged sword of nostalgia. And if you do it right, it is considered good, but at the same time, you can't please everyone. And the simple act of just even remaking it or just updating the graphics on it, it will get you cut in half, basically, by the double-edged sword. Because some people just are stupid that way. But regardless, as that is, yeah, if you're gonna remake something, or remastered or wherever, you gotta see first if it will really make you profits in the long run or be good, or you're able to do more with it. And the problem is, the reason why Insomniac left the Spyro franchise is because they saw they couldn't do nothing more, or in their eyes, the franchise was done. And then Activision came along and bought up the rights to the IP and done their own version. And as much as the original fans may hate the sound of this, the original version of it, despite the fact we went through this great story of it, you could tell there's a whole lot more you could do with that. And like the world they have created, the world they have built in the Legend of Spyro world it is truly a fascinating world. There's a whole bunch of these actual races and backstory and lore behind it that you see through the games. And it's like how some races worship the dragons while others hate them. It really opens up the revenue of doing like spin-offs. Like you could easily see a spin-offs of other characters. Hell, you could even go so far as like do a story about Spyro and Cinder's child. Which, by the way, at the end, for those of you who don't know, Spyro and Cinder do actually get together in the end when Cinder basically confesses her love to Spyro. At the very end of the game, after they defeat Malfor. Or one could easily make a game about how Spyro and Cinder's children, or as Spyro and Cinder as adults, it's having children, and that's just focusing around the actual main characters. You can't even go out your way to actually make your own character, such as a lot what people at DeviantArt done. They make their own characters and have their own stories and have main story in the background or talked about as a great legend or something like. Yeah, like if you're just looking even art about a lot of dragon stuff, uh, if you actually find there's infinitely more stuff that is based in the Legend of Spyro's world than it is in the original series and Skylanders combined. Like the world is actually what they made is just that good. It's just that expensive. It was well done. You want to learn more about this world. Well, then, frankly, when you look at the original series games world, it doesn't have that same sort of appeal to it as the Legend of Spyro series has, and as for Skylanders, well, yeah, it's even less so. Like, hey, that world is just make you just shake your head. It's like that's a world made for little kids and that, and so was the originals. Like that's kind of part of the problem, but the Legend of Spyro games, even though they were made for kids, but you can clearly tell, oh, there's so much more done with it, and so much more you still can do with it. Like, this is a truly fascinating world, a world worth visiting again. And we do know that at one point they were actually seriously considering making a movie based in this world, but then they canceled it for their Skylanders thing, which it was kind of complete bullshit. But they, like you can actually find it on Wikipedia. Yeah, yeah, for the Legend of Spyro franchise and series, and they did, and on that page you actually find there were actually discussions of plans of actually doing more with this world. Well, and with the fact that they have shown Spyro in this is footage right here, and as the Legend of Spyro, you can clearly tell they're probably making plans to revisit the world and try to bring some of the original plans they had for the series is to fruition. Like, try to actually work with some of the plans they came up with. And that. And also, it's the Legend of Spyro series, that's entirely Activision. Like all the characters Activision owns, all the worlds, different elements of the world Activision owns, and they have owned the complete rights. Whereas the originals, they may own the Spyro IP, but they don't really own the games or the world that created. And also, that brings me to another topic: characters. And one character from the Spyro game series, as I mentioned time and time again already in this series, who in the Skylander games has been almost criminally ignored, despite the fact so much time and effort was devoted to her in the Legend of Spyro games, is this sweet character, Cinder. Here, in my personal opinion, she's actually my personal favorite Spyro character in the whole franchise. She's been as in the character Cinder. She's she has a great and wonderful backstory to her, as I previously briefly go over. She was originally the villain, but not really of her own volition. She was forced into that role, forced to be that way by Malfoy. Or in the second game, as I established, she goes out seeking revenge, and not so much seeking revenge, but redemption. Redemption, that's the word I meant. And the third game, she's still seeking redemption, and at the end of the game, she does actually confess her love, effectively confirming all the shippers' dreams, and it's for Spyro and Cinder to get together, er, which they do in the end, and it's a very popular one and that's a very, as you can see here, it's a very popular thing. Like even to this day, you'll still find Spyro and Cinder art, er, love art here, er, and Activision does own the character Cinder, which is why I'm kind of partly worried: is she going to be left in the dust as in these new Spyro games? Even though she's this fantastic character, er, that's perfect for the hero, who is the actual love interest of the hero Spyro. Like I know a lot of people like to say that this other character called Ember, not the one from My Little Pony, but one from a previous Spyro game, like to be, but from what I've seen, and she went off to be with this other guy by the name Flame. Whereas Cinder here, announced herself to be a Spyro's love. That Spyro is the one that she loved. Uh, and she is a good character. For girls out there, she showed that women are capable of staying with their men and be strong. But also, she's a good character for people who say like who's looking for redemption. Like, sure you may have done wrongs in your past, but you can actually improve yourself. And there's a lot you could still do with that character. Like, she may, even though he may not, even though she basically earned a redemption at the end of the game, but you could make an entire story focus around that she still thinks she's not fully redeemed, and have her and Spyro basically work with that, and or have, as I said earlier, have their child continue on their quest, but also learning about some of the horrible things that Cinder has done. But, like, there is quite a bit of potential, and the character Cinder is a really good character here, and in fact, the whole romance of the character Spyro and Cinder is still very popular.
Only that he has quite a considerable fan base within the Spyro community, and that's really something that Activision really can't entirely ignore, or because bringing her to the new games will also bring her fans in as well.
Er, er, as, and anyway,
And then there's the main villain in the series, is Malfoy. Or, during the Skylanders run, and particularly the comics, they actually he brought back to do a story in the comic, where they come back, does in trouble, and then they defeat him, and lots of other things. But you can clearly see that Activision is doing what they can to keep the Legend of Spyro trilogy aware in people's minds. Like, all these characters do come from the Legend of Spyro series. But ever since Activision got the Spyro IP, how often do you hear about the original characters outside Spyro, Sparks, and even Hunter? Here, like for example, Ripto, a popular character in that one, and although I believe had her name, even Ember and the big greedy bear. Here, hey, ever since Activision bought the IP, you heard virtually nothing of them. Even Hunter was almost completely forgotten, but they brought him back during the Spyro series that basically still apply. So, but he's also part of it. But and you don't even in Skylanders you don't really hear anything of the original Spyro characters. Heck, they virtually don't exist. But what you do here is the Legend of Spyro characters. Who and and almost all the time it's fun. Sender even a lot of basically ignored. Or and like they do these subtle little things during the Skylander things that keeps the Legend of Spyro alive. And and among other things.
A the reason and why I think why the I pretty much established the reasons why Activision will not make the original game series, but will come back to the Legend of Spyro's game series is pretty much effectively made at this point. But I hope you find this informative, and if you agree with me, good. If you don't, well, that's entirely your option. And I apologize for the poor quality of this video. This is the very first one I made, and I don't really intend to make this a common thing. And I, as a result, I don't have a fraction of the stuff. As I hope you enjoyed it. Find it very informative. But anyway,